I would like to tell you the story of a little girl that could remember her last incarnation. This girl that was called, she could be still alive. No. Her name was Shanti Devi. She was born in 1926 in Delhi. And as soon as she started to talk, she started to say that she had lived in a different country, that she had been married, and her parents were astonished. They would smile at her when she would say these things. It was absurd what she was saying. And while she was growing, she would continue talking about this country, and she knew the dialect of this town. It was an Indian dialect. And her family did not know that dialect. So they would ask themselves, where are these words coming from? So she goes to school when she is 6, and with her friends, she started talking about this. And she said, I live in this city. I have a husband and I have a child. I died 10 days after I had this baby, and I could not grow this baby. And everyone was a bit teasing her for this. At one point, she started to close herself. And then one day, the director of this school, he decided to go and visit this family. And they started to ask her questions. How is this husband? What was the name of this husband? What work was he doing? And she started saying he's in sales. And so this director found this man, and he wrote a letter to him. And he said, there is this little girl that was at that point like 8 years old. There's this little girl at 8 years old that talks about you, and she says that she was your wife and that you had a child. And this man was very rich, and so he thought, probably this is someone that wants to play with me. So he sent his cousin to this little girl in Delhi, asking the cousin to make as if he was making as if he was this man. And this little girl recognizes him as the cousin, and this man, the cousin, asks many questions. And he asks, when? And this girl says, when my husband would leave, you would always court me. And this was not good. And he said she was so beautiful. She was a saint woman. She was very devoted to Krishna, the woman that had died. So he understood that she was the incarnation of this wife. So he refers everything to the husband, and he decides to go personally with his child to visit the girl. But he doesn't present himself as the husband, but as the brother of the husband. But as soon as the little girl sees him, he embraces him and kisses him. And she says, "Oh, my husband, I am so happy to see you." And when she saw the little boy, she embraced the boy. At that point, this boy was 1 year older than her, but she embraces him as a mother would do. And Shanti Devi asks this husband, have you maintained this promise of not marrying, or the promise you had done to me when I was dying? And he says, no, I actually got married. And she says, and the money that we had, we hid in the floor of the house. There was this secret place, and only they two knew about this place. So at that point, he realizes that she is the incarnation of his wife. And the girl says, did you offer that money that we had there to Krishna? And the girl says, okay, I will excuse you for all of this. At that point, Gandhi, this is, I make a parenthesis, it's my consideration. I think that reincarnation was a known fact in India. But people were... It was a strange thing that someone could remember a reincarnation. But Gandhi was interested of this child, not because she could remember the reincarnation, but Gandhi went to visit the child, the girl. My personal consideration is that Gandhi wanted to help her spiritually. Nobody, if he is not ready, can remember his past incarnations. But obviously, the attachment of this woman towards this man that continued for lives was so strong, as well as the love for Krishna. But before Krishna was her husband, probably. So I imagine how many times in her devotion towards Krishna she must have said, can you come, Krishna, to me? And the Lord probably would say, yes, but I'm not at your at the first place in your life. A devotee, if he doesn't understand this important point, can lose, encounter many incarnations for this. So Gandhi arrives to the child to see the girl, and he says, you have to go to this town and you have to touch with your hand this reality. A child of 8 years old that will see her husband, a new wife, the child, her child in the past life. And he said to her, Shanti Devi, when you will see all of this, remain grounded in truth. And another consideration that I make is not being grounded in truth means that this is a dream. We have been linked together. We had all a child, a life together. It's all a dream, but the only truth is God. So that way she could forever destroy these attachments. So there were a lot of people that were interested to this case and wanted to study it. Intellectuals, scientists, and when she comes to this little town, there was the whole town waiting for her, and she recognized the grandfather, and she asked, "Did you take care of my tulsi plant?" And she could recognize places and people. When she came back, and she was she had recognized her parents of the past life, and the parents of this life were worried. What will she want to do? Will she want to go to the other town? And she had all these parents and family of double of everything. So she was wise, And I think this was a blessing that of Krishna that came through Gandhi. She came back to Delhi. She lived a normal life. She must have understood. God gave her the grace to understand. In fact, she lived a simple life. She did not get married in this incarnation. She studied philosophy. And she lived a life dedicated to God. I found some pictures when she was a little girl. She was contracted as a child, and I saw pictures after her graduation from university, and you could see her so expansive and light and bright. So probably the dedicating her life to God gave her this. So it's a story that helps us understand that reincarnation really exists, but much more from, we can find so much more in this story. Attachments create disasters in our lives. In Yogananda said, in the astral world, you will find so many people that have been many roles at the same time. They have been father, mother, child. And he says, Yogananda says, who will you love in a personal way? You have to try to love God. And through God, the love to God, you will love all of the people that God sends you. The point is to bring God in our life. Instead, attachments, they torment us. Because even if we don't remember past lives, they torment us. If we have had an incredible love in one incarnation, how many times and how many incarnations will we search for that perfect love? And it's so difficult to find that. So attachments torment us, and they keep us away from God. Because we try to find these toys, in this world. And God says, oh, my son, when will you be tired of these toys? And when will you start looking for me truly? So when in our incarnation, we think that we want this or that. We feel that we have lost something or someone, that we have not received something that for us is meaningful. In reality, we have not searched for the only thing that we really need, that is the love of God. We don't need anything else. We need that presence that feeds us and nurtures us in everything. That's the only thing that we need, is the central point of our incarnation. Like this song of Swami, I will be thine always. When I will die, look into my eyes and tell me. I will always say, I will be for you always. And this experience, another story, is of a young boy. This is more or less of 1944, this story. He was a young man, and he was lived in Mississippi, a black man, and he worked in the cotton plantations with his grandmother. The grandmother married a man that was an alcoholic, and he was violent. And when this boy, at one point, he was a young man, and to defend the grandmother, he killed this man, and he ended up in jail, and he was in the death row, waiting to be killed. And at one point he sees someone that has a little medal in one of his inmates, and he says, "What is this medal that you have on your neck, and he says he takes it out from his neck and he throws it and he gives it to him and he says, "Keep it, I don't want it." And he was looking at this little medal, and he could not understand who it was, but he put it on his neck, in his neck. And that evening, while he was sleeping, he feels that someone taps him on the arm, and he wakes up and he says he sees this vision that he said it's the most beautiful woman that God had ever created. She was so bright, and he couldn't understand what was happening from what this vision was. And this woman says, "I am your mother, and I love you so much because you are my son. Call a priest, and he will tell you who I am." So he calls. He says, "I want to talk to a priest now, immediately." And he showed the medal, and he told the whole story. And he could not read or write. He could not go into a church because he was black, so he could not go in. And the priest explained that it was the Madonna, and he talked to him about the story of Jesus, of his life. So he continued visiting this man, and he fell in love. She was already in his heart. And many, many times the Madonna went to presented herself to him and had him feel her love for him. At one point, there was this moment where he was going to be just killed, giustiziato, and the sheriff says, "You can ask whatever you wish." And he says, "Okay, I see that all my friends are so shocked of my transformation." And they were all thinking it was so, he was only 20, and he was such a good man, young man, and that it was absurd to kill him. And he said, "You don't understand this body. It's just this body that will die. I will go to be with my mother. So I want to make a party. I hope." I asked the sheriff if the priest can bring ice cream and cake, and if you can permit all of these men that are in death row, if they can all participate to this party. And the priest said, "What if they do something to the priest?" And he said, "No one is going to hurt the priest." And he asks his inmates and his friends. So the sheriff decides to permit this, and a woman brings the food and sweets, and they all had this beautiful party. And each one then went back to their cells. The next day, it was the day of the execution, and he was happy about doing a bit of what he had of his destiny. And the sheriff arrived, ran saying, "No, it has been, the execution is not going to be done for other 2 weeks." And Claude started crying. He said, "You don't understand. If you would see how beautiful this Madonna is, you would not be away from her, not even 1 second." But obviously, the Divine Mother had different plans for him. She wanted to bring her love to this place of suffering. He had really had such a transformation, and he was bringing joy to everyone. This is a beautiful story because This was a man that did not have anything. He did not know the love of a woman. He did not know, did not have a love of a father that protected him. He did not have a home. He did not know freedom or justice, and not even respect, because nobody respected him. He did not even know the tranquility of having what he needed, because everything was taken from him, and he was incarcerated because he had defended his loved grandmother, just to defend her from this horrible man, and now he was losing his life. But in his heart there was no rancor. There was just Jesus. At that point, when he had arrived and he was in this prison, he was a good man, and he did not feel anything bad for anyone. And when he was touched by the love of the Divine Mother, he really changed and became joyful. He was always probably a good man, but sad. At that point he was joyful, and he did not have a sense of lack of anything. He was full of the presence of the Divine Mother. His life was so difficult, and he just wanted to go to her. And his life changed because he entered in contact with Divine Mother, so with the Madonna. So this is actually the message. God wants us to come close to Him and to be in His love. And when we can't, there is this prayer of Yogananda that says, Lord, in sickness or in health, in joy, in success or defeat, in tragedy or in happiness, in life or death, I will be thine forever, Mother. I will be faithful to you in every sense, and I love you forever. It's not obviously how I said it. I tried to translate it, but this. So incarnation after incarnation, they're all dreams. Everything finishes, but what really stays forever. I will now read a whisper from Whispers of Eternity, and it talks about this theme. Teach me to be a dewdrop enchanted with divine love, slipping unaffected down the lotus leaf of seductive sense lures of thy glistening waters of wisdom. I am thy immortal dewdrop, sliding freely and not adhering to the leaves of past, present, and future lives. I smoothed the slopes of my mind with wise restraint, that the thirsty pores of temptation might absorb none of my strength. I am thy prodigal dewdrop, quivering in the hollows of life and death, waiting to slip down when it can to thy shoreless sea. Though long truant I, thy tiny dewdrop, am homeward bound, however long the journey take. After this rhythmic dance of life, rising with birth and sinking with the downbeat of death, I will refresh myself at last in thy unmoving sea. I do not want to lose myself. Thy tiny drop craves only by merging in thee to feel that I am one with all the other drops in thy ocean. I will be a rainbow-hued dewdrop, one with thy omnipresence, and yet in my omniscience, aware of my former dewdrop existence, I pray that all God-thirsty souls will come and drink from the great source of all our lives. So until this plan, divine plan is done, we should not stop asking God that our dewdrop can emerge in the crystal waters of thy love.